Hello, and welcome to the first webinar web broadcast from SOFA's Durable Employment eVillage. My name is Paul Morgan, and I work for SANE Australia, the national mental health charity which, with ACE, is supporting this new initiative from SOFA. I want to spend just a little time talking about what mental illness really means to people when they experience it, and why this is an issue that matters in the workplace. Firstly, mental illness is more and more a public issue. It's not something that's hidden away and private and shameful as it so often was for so many years. Today it's something that people recognise is a part of all our lives. The workplace is the locus of our lives these days, with the changes in society so that people spend more and more time at work and less time in institutions like churches and other places where people gathered socially. Really, the workplace is the locus of modern life, and if we're going to be talking about mental illness and making changes in how people with mental illness live, it means that change has to happen in the workplace. Thirdly, understanding of mental illness is increasingly important as people affected are supported back to work through disability employment agencies and similar services. Now let's talk about the confusion surrounding mental illness. We hear all the numbers flying about in the media almost on a weekly basis. 1 in 100, 1 in 4, 1 in 5, and over what periods of time. It's no surprise really that many people are still confused about what mental illness really means. But I think a first simple statement to make is that all of us have mental health to varying degrees, just as we have physical health to varying degrees over our lifetimes. It's just part of who we are. So it really shouldn't be any surprise at all that 45% of us, just about half of the entire population, at some time in life have a mental health problem. 45% of the population. Can that really be true? Well, the answer is yes. And in fact, 20% of us, around 1 in 5, and these are figures that come from the ABS, around 1 in 5 of us are affected every single year. But how do those numbers break down? What would you say is the most common form of mental health problem in Australia today? A lot of people might say depression, but in fact it's anxiety disorders. They affect 14%, around 1 in 6 of the entire population every year. The numbers affected by depression are far less, but still a very significant number, around 6% of the population. Illnesses like schizophrenia, psychotic disorders, they affect around 1 or 2% of the population every year. There's a further 5% or so often who have other mental health problems as well, who are affected by substance abuse problems. Now let's talk about anxiety disorders. Someone with an anxiety disorder is far more likely to be in employment as opposed to having one of the other mental health problems. There's a range of types of anxiety disorder. We've all heard of the OCD, generalized anxiety disorder, people who have phobias, anything that involves that very, very increased stress, extreme worry without any real cause, panic attacks, obsessions and obsessive behavior, compulsions, phobias. It's more than just being a worrier or someone who's a bit of a worrywart. These are symptoms that cause such distress that it really has a serious impact and interferes with people's day-to-day lives. It's important to say the symptoms can be managed by treatment, but many people don't get that treatment. Many people with anxiety disorders actually feel that life's just like that and that they don't have something that can be helped. So anxiety disorders have the highest prevalence, around 14% of the entire population. And what about depression? Many of those 6% of people with depression will be in the workplace. If they're not in the workplace themselves, they will have a partner or other family member who is. We should always remember, as well as people with a mental health problem in the workplace, there's an equivalent number who have family members who are working as well, and those people are concerned about and worrying about their family member who has the illness. So the impact is really very, very wide. Depression, just like anxiety, has a whole range of types and a range of severity. It can be something that's periodic, or it can be something that's a lifelong disabling condition. For most people, though, the great majority of people, the symptoms can be managed if they receive optimal treatment. It's not just a matter of being a bit down. Depression of this kind involves extreme, prolonged sadness, negative thoughts, flat affect that doesn't really have any relationship to an exterior cause, such that it interferes with everyday life, affecting people's ability to function, to work, to have meaningful relationships, to experience any sort of pleasure in life. These really are devastating conditions. And the prevalence of depression is around 6% of the population. And finally, there are conditions like schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders. They get most of the real estate in newspapers in terms of coverage of sensationalized incidents, but in fact they're the rarest of mental health problems. Unfortunately, they kick in very early. Illnesses like schizophrenia will often come on for the first time when people are in their late teens, early 20s, and it can be an ongoing condition right through the person's life, to varying degrees of disability and varying according to how much their symptoms respond to treatment. A lot of you will be familiar with the condition and the symptoms that are experienced by people with illnesses like schizophrenia, the hallucinations, the delusions, the disorganized thoughts. And these are delusions about the world, hallucinations that are experienced. Hearing voices, for example, that are as real as my voice now. So it's extremely confusing as well as profoundly distressing for people with these conditions. Far less likely to be in employment, but through the efforts of disability employment services and other agencies, more people with these illnesses are entering the workforce. And that's why it's so important that managers, human resources, staff and others in the workplace do have an appropriate response to make it work for everybody. Unfortunately, the managerial response to mental illness in the workplace can be summed up in those three famous words: fear, uncertainty and doubt. FUD. The reasons for this is that the symptoms often